Hey everyone, today we're talking about sour diesel, the strain that defined East Coast cannabis for 2 decades. And it all started with an accident. But before we get into it, if you're new here, this channel is all about the history of cannabis. The strains, the people, the stories that shaped the culture. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe. So, sour diesel. If you know anything about cannabis, you've heard the name. It's one of those strains that transcended the weed world. It crossed over into hip-hop, into New York culture, into the mainstream. But most people don't know where it actually came from, and the origin story. It's kind of wild. Let's set the stage first. In the early 90s, there was 2 dominant cannabis cultures in America, West Coast and East Coast. They were both developing completely separately. On the West Coast, you had OG Kush, the strain that would come to define California cannabis. Earthy, piney, that distinct Kush smell that's now everywhere. On the East Coast, the scene was different. It was more underground, more secretive, and it was about to get its own signature strain. OG Kush and sour diesel are mirror images of each other. Same era, same underground networks, opposite coasts. Both emerged in the early 90s. Both spread through trusts, not street corners. Both ended up in hip-hop lyrics. But here's the key difference. OG Kush was a deliberate selection. Someone chose it, cultivated it, refined it. Sour diesel, it was a mistake. Let me explain. So it all starts in the mid-1990s in New York City. There was this grower known as AJ, and he had just discovered that his grow room had been contaminated. Now, we don't know AJ's real name. The initials reportedly stood for something his business partners called him, and it wasn't very flattering, but that's the underground for you. AJ was running Chemdawg 91 females alongside Super Skunk genetics that he had brought back from Amsterdam. It was standard practice at the time. Keep your best females, grow them out, no seeds. But something went wrong. A male plant released pollen. His seedless females got pollinated. At harvest, seeds appeared where they should not have been. This was a disaster for most growers. Seeds mean lower potency, lower value, and just a massive waste of time. Most growers would have thrown those seeds out, but AJ grew them out, and what he found changed everything. It was a plant with a fuel-citrus-skunk intensity so distinctive it filled the room. It wasn't herbal, it wasn't floral, it was nothing like people were used to. It smelled like a petroleum refinery surrounded by citrus trees. That's the only way to describe it. He named it after what it smelled like, sour diesel. Now let's talk genetics, because that's where things really get interesting. 3 geographic sources converged in one grow room. First, there was Chemdawg 91. This came from Massachusetts. It was grown from seeds bought at a Grateful Dead show in Indiana in 1991. Yeah, you heard that right, a dead show. The story goes that a guy bought an ounce from a stranger in the parking lot. He found 13 seeds in them, grew it out, and discovered something exceptional. Chemdawg 91 already had that diesel chemical smell, that sharp, fuel-forward intensity that would become sour diesel's signature. It also brought that sativa energy, that cerebral, uplifting high. Second, there was Super Skunk. This came from Amsterdam. It was a scenty seed strain that launched in 1990. It was built from Skunk 1 crossed with Afghan indica genetics. Super Skunk was bred for one thing: yields. Big, dense, heavy buds. Commercial scale production. It wasn't fancy, but it got the job done. The accident combined them. Chemdawg gave the diesel intensity and sativa energy. Super Skunk gave the skunk fuel character and commercial yields. Together, they created something neither parent could do alone. And here's the crazy part. Those genetics had traveled around the world before ending up in that New York City grow room. Think about it. The Afghan indica genetics started in the Hindu Kush Mountains, traveled to California in the 70s with the hippie trail, then to Amsterdam with the seed bank revolution in the 80s. Afghanistan, California, Amsterdam, New York, full circle. The global underground cannabis network, all in one plant. Okay, now let's talk about New York City in the mid-90s. It was the most expensive illegal cannabis market in America. A premium ounce that cost $200 in California or Colorado, it went for $400 to $500 in Manhattan, sometimes more. Why so expensive? Well, there was 2 reasons. First, there was the customer base. New York had a high concentration of wealth. Finance, media, arts, entertainment, people with money who wanted quality and were willing to pay for it. Second, there was the risk. Getting product into the city was dangerous. The Giuliani administration was cracking down hard. Broken window policing, stop and frisk. Street-level enforcement was intense. Everything moved through delivery. There wasn't any dispensaries or storefronts at this time. Nothing was out in the open. Here's how it worked. You got a phone number through a personal introduction. Someone vouched for you. You called, you waited 30 minutes, and then you completed the transaction at the door. Bike messengers played a huge role at this time. They already had the infrastructure. Fast, mobile, bags that looked like normal delivery cargo. They moved through the city without drawing attention. Doormen in the West Village buildings knew which residents smoked. East Village and Lower East Side, that's where the music scene was happening. Everybody knew somebody who knew somebody. This was the market sour diesel entered, and its smell was both its greatest asset and its greatest liability. Think about it. In New York apartments with thin walls, shared hallways, tiny spaces, a bag of sour diesel announced itself to everybody in range. You couldn't hide it. You opened that bag and the whole floor knew. But here's the thing, every person who smelled it became a potential customer. They'd ask around, track it down, want to know what that incredible smell was. The aroma was its own marketing. In a market where you couldn't advertise, the product advertised itself. Now here's where things get really interesting. Sour diesel and New York hip hop were the same underground economy, just viewed from different angles. The neighborhoods that produced Biggie, Ben-Stuy Brooklyn, Jay-Z, Marcy Projects, Wu-Tang, Staten Island and Brooklyn. These were the same neighborhoods where premium cannabis circulated. Same delivery networks, same social geography, same trust economy. A rapper in the mid-90s who wanted the best weed in New York got it the same way a lawyer or music executive got it. Through the network, through personal connections, through vouching. The difference was visibility. Cannabis moved through the same borough networks that moved music. Managers, club owners, promoters, studio engineers, label executives, artists, they all shared and participated in that infrastructure. East Coast rappers didn't discover sour diesel like West Coast rappers discovered OG Kush. West Coast artists adopted OG Kush, endorsed it, put it on. East Coast artists, they grew up in the same city where sour diesel was being created. On the same streets, in the same buildings, dealing with the same delivery guys. That's a different kind of authenticity, not celebrity endorsement. It was local credential. By the mid-2000s, the name required no explanation for an East Coast hip-hop audience. You didn't need to describe it. You didn't need to explain it. Sour diesel was just cultural shorthand. So what happened to sour diesel? Where did it end up? The strain went national through California. When the medical dispensary market matured in the early 2000s, sour diesel was one of the first East Coast strains to appear on California menus. Dispensaries wanted named strains, premium product, good stories. East Coast sour diesel, created accidentally by a New York City grower in the 90s. That was a story worth telling. By the mid-2000s, recognizable geography of American cannabis had emerged. Sour diesel dominated the East Coast, OG Kush dominated the West Coast, and they commanded similar prices. In each other's territories, they were expensive imports with cultural cachet. Then we get to legalization. When New York legalized cannabis in 2022, sour diesel appeared on dispensary menus immediately. It wasn't nostalgia or a throwback, it was an active seller. 30 years after AJ decided not to throw out those seeds, the terpene profile they produce is still what a huge portion of the East Coast market means when they say quality. Think about that. 30 years, one accidental cross, and it's still defining what premium cannabis tastes like on the East Coast. The accidents were the method. The choices were made by people who had no idea what they were choosing. AJ didn't set out to create a legendary strain. He just didn't throw out some seeds that he probably should have. And that's the story of sour diesel. All right, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Seriously, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. I drop new videos on cannabis history every week. Strains, people, the stories behind the culture. And if you want to go deeper, like way deeper, check out my book. I explore stories like this in a lot more detail. The genetics, the economics, the people who shaped it all. Links in the description. Thanks again. See you next time.